I have to accept the world that we live in, I realized that, I have to accept it. And then I realized that, this is never going to change until the dollar actually collapses and then reveals that they don't have any underwear. And then once that happens, I predict silver price will probably pass gold.
Hey friends, thanks so very much for tuning in. I think if you've been on YouTube as long as I have, you're in for a treat here. This is a blast from the past. No, wait, it's a blast from the present if you're following cryptos. I have on the line right now DavinciJ, Davinci Jeremy. This goes all the way back to 2010-11 when so many of us in the space, YouTube was a lot smaller at that point, and so many of us were precious metals bulls, silver and gold, and Davinci was right there with us. And then he made a bold prediction. He had come up with this Bitcoin he was following. None of us had really heard of it. He was a bull. I think he even bought some early on. We'll ask him about it. He's done very, very well. Many of his predictions have come true as well. Davinci, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Great to be here.
It's great to have you. You know what? I stumbled upon a video a couple of months back with you being interviewed by one of these crypto guys, and I thought, there's Davinci. I haven't seen you in so long, and you're still out there. Let me ask you this. Before we talk about Bitcoin and cryptos, I see that as we're having this conversation today, gold has jumped to an 8-month high as geopolitical chaos reigns. I always love the mainstream media, geopolitical chaos. How about economic chaos, Davinci? Maybe that's why gold is popping. And look, silver is moving in tandem as well.
Yes, I've seen that, and I'm very, very happy because, I still a gold and silver bug, like most of my viewers, my ex-viewers at least. I still think gold and silver is money and nothing else. But you know what? I knew that crypto was going to do extremely well, and the reason why is because here's the thing: Bitcoin. Before Bitcoin was invented, it was thought to be impossible for us to solve the double spend problem. It was technology came along that solved that problem, and I couldn't believe that people couldn't see that. Wait a second, this is a revolution. This is like inventing electricity. I remember reading about the invention of electricity and how people are thinking, "Well, that's crazy. Who needs electricity?" Yet today, everybody uses electricity. Isn't that right?
That's one of the things I remember about you, man. Your boisterous laugh. You have such a natural, great laugh, man. That's one of the things I love about you. You're the real McCoy. You're the genuine article. I've always thought you're very authentic. And, I have. Even going back to, 2010, 11, I always liked your analysis. It was very measured. It was very informed. And you mentioned Bitcoin early on, and any of us dummies that would have listened to you could have got in. When did you buy your first Bitcoin? Was it actually under $1?
Yes, it was it was less than $1. By the time I did the research, it was about $1, and I started buying at $1. And then after that, I couldn't find a lot of people because I didn't trust MT Docs at the time, and for good reason, as you know. And I decided to mine the Bitcoins for quite some time, and I did very well mining it. And I also created a mining pool as well. To mine both Bitcoin and Namecoin and stuff like that. So I did a lot of projects just in the mining industry, and then I left the mining industry once I moved to Chile.
Okay, so you got in under $1, and you were making YouTube videos, I guess, at least commenting about Bitcoin in some of your YouTube videos. Now, back then, guys, around 2010, 2011, there was Brother John, Chris Dwayne, myself, Davinci, and several others that were kind of the primary silver bulls on YouTube, telling the story of the criminality of the Federal Reserve, of the printing presses controlled by the Rothschild International Banking Cartel, and the reason the dollar would ultimately be doomed. What is your forecast for the dollar today? What is your forecast for silver and gold as we look at things now? Boy, 8-9 years later, Davinci, it's hard to believe silver's still stuck in the 15s. I mean, that is astounding.
Yes, it's not that astounding when you look at what the banking system does in order to prevent the price from going higher. You see, notice how when in 2000, I think it was in 2011, that silver took off to almost $50, but didn't quite breach the $50 mark, right? It may have a little bit, but didn't stay there for more than maybe an hour or so. And then they what they did was they changed the rules at the Crimex. I call it the Crimex because it's just a criminal organization. And then of course once the rules were changed, of course the price dropped. Now keep in mind the Crimex, when you trade, the Crimex sets the price. And when I consider the Crimex as a price setting mechanism, do you know what that is? It's just like saying, okay, you know what, I've invented a widget, and I can only produce this one widget a year, and I'm going to sell these widgets in the future. So I'm going to say I'm going to promise to get you this widget in the future once I have it done. And then people start selling those promises around, because then I'm selling a whole bunch of these promises. And then I realize, I don't need to create the widget. I just have to sell promises of the widget. And people are paying through the nose for that. And that's what's being passed around on the Crimex. A promise to pay that can't be fulfilled.
That's exactly right. But that's what criminals do. See, these guys, these bankers, have come up with a way to rob the banks. I mean, they're actually bank robbers, but they're not hijacking armored cars. They're doing it. It's very white collar. It's genius. I mean, the best way to rob a bank is to become a banker.
Exactly. It's incredible how they get away with this. It's mind-boggling. But I have to accept the world that we live in. I realize that I have to accept it, and then I realize that this is never going to change until the dollar actually collapses and then reveals that they don't have any underwear. And and then once that happens, the price of silver, I predict the silver price will probably pass gold.
Well, one of the things I find interesting is when we see gold pop, we see the silver chart. The silver does the exact same thing. I mean, they move in tandem, like literally. Silver mirrors gold, not of course in the percentage moves or the dollar moves, but if you look at the charts, they're identical. So we know that silver has not been demonetized, even though the bankers would like us to believe it has. Silver still is a precious metal that's very valuable. It just, I think, because of the manipulation, it is currently priced at probably 1/100th of what it should be. But that makes sense because we know they have at least 100 times more paper silver than actual physical. And I think it's many times more than 100 times.
Yes. That's why I'm surprised you didn't get shocked by my statement price. It's probably going to pass gold. Might not because of crypto, now that crypto's invented, but I think there's a good chance we're in the real silver craze when the market realizes that, hey, wait a minute, silver's been manipulated for like 40 plus years now, and we don't have a lot of it left. Everybody's going to be running out to buy it. And we're going to see a huge bubble price in silver of higher than gold. And once that happens, I think you should be selling. I think you should start selling anything below, anything higher than a 10-to-1 ratio on gold. Start, selling off your silver stack for that 10-to-1, and then higher as that ratio drops even further, you start selling off a little bit more because you don't know exactly where it's going to stop. But it's going to be a crazy, crazy market once the dollar collapses, and we see that all those bankers they don't have the silver to cover all those promises.
No, they sure don't, and they don't have enough gold to cover all the promises either. It's fractional reserve paper gold and paper silver at this point. Let me ask you this. Let's just rewind time now. Back in 10, 11, 12, we were all still very much enthusiastic about the future of precious metals, and you were starting to stick your foot in the pool of Bitcoin and the cryptos. What happened to your channel? Did you sort of retire from YouTube? Did I just lose track of you and now you're back? Just fill in the blanks for me, and then we'll talk about Mt. Gox and cryptos and your prognostications for the future of Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum.
Well, I didn't. I had a few personal issues, right, that I had to take care of. But other than that, I wanted to continue doing videos. I just didn't find the time. And I just didn't know what to talk about. every single time I wanted to do a video. I felt that I've said everything. And, it was very disheartening to do videos and people were like thumbing them down, saying that I was crazy to invest in Bitcoins and saying that it's going to go to zero. It's really hard to go against the whole public, especially when your own audience is like is not liking what you're saying. So it's really difficult to do videos in that kind of environment.
Oh, I empathize with you on that too. And it's interesting how so many of us, and I tried to be very open-minded about cryptos. I try to be open-minded about everything, but of course then I ultimately will draw my own conclusions, and where I find satanic pedophiles in control, I like to call them out. So where I once was a Republican, I'm more than happy to call out the crimes of the Republicans. And the same would be true for Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin and the cryptos. If I thought the whole thing was a con, or if I thought the whole thing was just the slippery slope into the mark of the beast. No, I think the mark of the beast stuff is going to come from the world government. And I guess the question some of these folks might have for you is the world government in control of the cryptos? Is Bitcoin the camel's nose under the tent that will take us to that mark of the beast, one world government, one currency system? I don't think it is. And I guess I would ask your thoughts on that. But I do empathize with you about the hostility people in the space were showing those that were talking about Bitcoin. Our friend Brother John F. endured a lot of that as well. And by the way, you can comment on that Mark of the Beast thing, but also Mt. Gox, Brother John F., was an early adopter of Bitcoin, and I think he lost all of his Bitcoin, or a heck of a lot of it, in that Mt. Gox crash. So the problem of being an early adopter was the barriers to entry. It was tough. Most of us didn't know about cold storage. How do you buy it? How do you hold it safely? So use Mt. Gox, and then the whole thing crashed and everybody lost everything. So I'm babbling here. So jump in. First of all, is Bitcoin the camel's nose under the tent for a one world currency?
I would say no, and I understand where people would feel that way, because you're thinking that, okay, well, you have an account. Well, if we just study what Bitcoin is, right? You don't use just one account number. You have to create multiple account numbers so that no one knows how much you've got. So you can't have just one account. And now you have a software that helps you manage all your accounts, and it's called a wallet, but it's actually a misnomer. It's not a wallet. It's actually a keychain, and more of a keychain. It keeps track of all your keys. And that's what you're backing up when you back up your wallet. You're backing up your keys that you own. Now, you asked the question, is it the mark of the beast? You know what? Honestly, it can be. It can be, because the reason why is that you don't have to use a decentralized currency. You can use the banker coin called XRP. And there's nothing wrong with XRP as it is today. I could go back in time and look at the Federal Reserve's document and charter and say, well, there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is, it's a promise of men. And you all know what promises of men the promises of men are not guaranteed. They will change the rules whenever they find it politically expedient. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's why our Constitution and our Bill of Rights is precious to us, and our Declaration of Independence, which says our rights are granted to us. Our rights are given to us by God, not by men, because men's laws are fallible. Our sovereignty is sacrosanct. Our freedom, our liberty is given to us by God.
Yes, it is. But these men who've written this down, you can write this down all you want. You can say this all you want, but once you have rulers and people who are in charge, they're going to say, well, you know what, we're going to change it just a little bit, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, until it all disappears again. Like, this is how it's always going to be. We're always going to go from prosperity back to slavery, back to prosperity again, because we just don't learn as a society to stay away from the socialists, the siren call of socialism, right? Because it always sounds great on paper, but it never works out, does it?
No, it never does. And now you have AOC and these other insane liberals coming out and basically calling for socialism every chance they get. screaming from the rooftops. What we need is free healthcare and free education from K through college. Never ever telling people that the way to pay for that is by taking 80 or 90% of everything you earn, thereby making you a serf to the state.
That's correct. And you know what? The sad thing is, if you really want, we all want free. We all do. You want the free healthcare for everyone. I want free healthcare for everyone. I want free schools for everyone. But that's not viable. Somebody has to pay for it some way. But it is viable through the free market. Eventually, the free market will make things free. For example, if you were to go back in time and said that I can call anywhere around the world and do a video show like this for absolutely free in 1980, I would have called you nuts.
That's right.
Yet we are doing that right now, and it's free. Well, it's not absolutely free. We are paying for our internet, but the cost of our internet is like nothing. So to us, it's free, right?
That's a very good example. You're absolutely right. The bandwidth alone wasn't even available 20 years ago. This was not even possible to have this conversation, maybe unless you're in the Pentagon, with technology and gear that didn't exist to us common folks. You're right. And I think that's sort of the democratization of wealth that we've seen happen over the last 20 years. I mean, an iPhone in your pocket is more powerful than the technology that Don Pettit, former NASA astronaut, says that NASA lost, which prevents us from going back to the moon.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
The iPhone in your pocket. I mean, that is the democratization of wealth. The fact that you're not even in this country, and we're having this live discussion via Zoom, which you can get for free, folks, and use Zoom for free to have conversations like this. That's the democratization of wealth. And I've always said that if we weren't ruled by malevolent dictators, if we were ruled, we don't want to be ruled by anyone, but this is where humanity is. If we were ruled by benevolent dictators, the world could be an Eden. It really could.
And now think about it, right? You know what God does for us? He lets us do whatever we want. Notice the difference there? Right? That's the benevolent dictator right there. God.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Free will, because these bankers, take YouTube, for instance, they want to take away our free will. If you want to watch a video about the moon landings or any conspiracy theories, take 9/11, for example, YouTube has specifically now said that they are going to curb or limit people's ability to find videos about 9/11 and flat earth and a variety of other quote-unquote conspiracies, because they don't want you to exercise your free will. They don't want you to see that information. I guess the question would be, as it pertains to 9/11, we now know that there's a grand jury being impaneled to investigate the demolitions of World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7. The question would be regarding these quote-unquote conspiracies, D, what is YouTube and Google and Eric Schmidt so damn afraid of?
I don't think they're afraid of anything. I think they're probably demanded by higher power to do this, and they have to follow along, or else they'll get destroyed by them. And it's probably the Rothschilds, right? So this is just a modern day style of book burning, basically. And you know what? Even if I didn't agree with whatever information that's provided, I don't think they have the right to basically censor the people from getting access to it. Whether it's right or wrong doesn't matter. Everyone should have access to all information at all times, and then decide for themselves.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that makes them very, very nervous, and the reason we knew this was coming sooner or later, is if you look at some of the biggest channels out there that are threatening the establishment narratives. Channels like Mark Dice, he has over 1 million subscribers. Then you look over at Fox News on YouTube, they only have 2.5 million subscribers. I mean, think about that. One guy who can make videos from his apartment has almost half as many subscribers, natural, organic subscribers that actually want to seek out his work and watch it on a daily basis. He's closing in on Fox News, a giant news organization with billions of dollars behind it and hundreds of people employed. I mean, it's insane, right? It's the democratization of information that they fear.
Exactly. And that's what's happening. And they want to change that. They want to move it back towards the mainstream. And the only way to do that is to cut off any truth information that's out there, and only have their lies. And I feel bad for that kid that was like just destroyed on mainstream media, like for all with lies. And it's just, oh my God, what are these guys doing? How do they still survive after this campaign against this little kid?
Yeah, Covington Catholic's Nick, right? Nick, I'll tell you what, that alone will tell you how, I mean, I use this term maybe a little too loosely, evil, but they truly are evil. Not only did they target a MAGA supporting, red hat wearing white kid, not only did they target him because of the MAGA hat, they targeted him because, those kids had just marched in a pro-life march, D. I mean, can you think of anything more despicable? If that kid had been any other color, there's no way that they would have hung him out to dry like that. And he's a minor. That's really the bottom line. They're so despicable. They don't care that he was 15 or 16. A minor.
I know. That broke my heart. I mean, these people are truly evil. Just like you said, they are demonic. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the New York State Senate has passed into law abortion on demand right up until the day before birth. If a mother, based on her health, her psychology, her age, stress, anything at all, now abortion can be approved on demand right up until the day before birth. And that's a slippery slope into the absolute bowels of hell, D.
I think they went too far. I have to be honest with you. I am pro-choice. However, I'm like to find a middle ground on that, because they're here in Chile, they're pro-life, but to extreme, meaning that if a mother has a dead baby in her belly, she's got to carry it to term, even if she's going to die. That's just ridiculous. That's just extreme. So you can take it to extreme the other way. So there has to be some sort of middle ground. And I think what the New York State did was like way tue extreme, if you ask me. That was just, okay, no, you can't do that. So that's just one extreme over there. And then there's the extreme over here, the pro-life extreme over here. So I think there's a middle ground somewhere where everybody can, and you know what, we'll never get everybody happy on this, right? Because, it is a very complicated subject. The life, whether or not a person is a person in the womb of a woman, is a very, very complicated subject. And I think there should be lots more discussion on it, and not infighting. There has to be discussion. We have to decide what constitutes life, how do we determine it, and be honest about it, and not be like fighting over every single issue like this, because we're never going to get to the truth. And that's all that's important, the truth.
That's right, truth, veritas. It is the most important thing, and the powers that be don't want us to be able to get to the truth. I mean, as Eric Schmidt, the evil Dr. Evil from Alphabet, has said, and I think it was around 2013, there should only be one answer. Anything else coming from Google is a bug.
When you use Google, do you get more than one answer? Of course you do.
Yeah, of course.
Well, that's a bug.
Yeah.
We have more bugs per second in the world.
There
Because we should be able to give you the right answer just once.
We should be able to give you one answer for every question. So just think about the lunacy of that. One answer regarding the Apollo missions, one answer regarding the creation of heaven and earth, one answer regarding Darwinism, one answer regarding the 9/11 terror attacks, just one answer. I mean, it's absolute lunacy.
No, I mean, we're different people, right? We have different beliefs. Whether they're right or wrong, we have the right to have them, and discuss amongst each other to figure out where the truth might be, right? And some of us will not agree with the truth, and some of us will, but we should be allowed to decide for ourselves what that is.
Well, and some of it is so fact-based that it cannot be denied, and yet they would still call us tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorists. Take, for instance, the 1913 rope-a-dope in which the Federal Reserve was formed. Again, these same mockingbirds will criticize you if you criticize the Fed because they will just call you anti-Semitic. They don't want folks to understand that the Federal Reserve is a central bank owned by a private cartel of bankers, headed by the Rothschilds. They don't want you to know that the central banks around the world are controlled by these same people, and they manipulate the currencies. And this takes us full circle right back to precious metals, right back to cryptos. So let me ask you this, going back to cryptos. You made some really big-time predictions regarding Bitcoin. You got in early. Tell us about those predictions, because I know you followed your own advice and you sold close to the top. And I think you're now in the process of getting back in. So tell us about that and tell us where you see Bitcoin going. And then we're going to wrap it up with silver and gold, where you see those going.
Well, yes. Back in 2017, in December, I did a video stating that, it's time to, get out of Bitcoin because, this is definitely a bubble. It's time to take some profits, right? I couldn't tell you the exact high, but, this is high enough. And you should take some profits. And I took some profit. I took a lot off the table. I took like half of my wealth, and that was quite substantial, right? Then I have a lot of cash, and I'm waiting to buy back in. I'm looking to buy back in and scaling back in below 3,000 now. I could be wrong on this, right? If the dollar collapses this year, I'm going to be completely wrong. Bitcoin will skyrocket really fast. And there is a point in which I know when I'm wrong, and that's when Bitcoin is above 6,000. Now I'm going to have to take lumps and buy it at higher than 6,000 if I am wrong. And I'm willing to accept that. But if the market, if nothing else occurs, no other crazy fundamental event occurs in the next few years, basically, Bitcoin is going to go further down, and that's when I'm going to start scaling it. Now, for any of your viewers, it's okay to buy Bitcoins even now because you know what? We're near the bottom. We're closer to the bottom than we are at the top. You don't have to worry so much about losing so much value because you know what? Bitcoin is going well over $30,000 in 4 to 5 years from now. So what's $1,000 between friends, really? So I recommend that, if you want, just do dollar cost averaging, $25, $50, whatever you can afford into Bitcoins. Try to learn how to protect yourself, of course, because that's important. You have to learn how to write down your 12-word backup phrase, store it someplace safe, right? Make sure that no one has access to that 12-word backup phrase, and protect yourself. And if you want, you could also use my wallet called Pandora's Wallet. I'm going to be releasing that shortly. And right now it's just in the beta testing phase, and we're still working out some bugs, but we're looking forward to releasing that to the public and having people protected from exchanges if you wish to trade the altcoins, which I do a lot. I trade the altcoins a lot using the little old lady style of trading. And so anyways, yeah, if you're interested in Bitcoins, right, I think it's a good time to buy. Just slowly scale in. I don't know the future for sure. I can only tell you the highest probability, and the highest probability is lower prices, but it might not happen.
Okay, I want to ask you about exchanges, and then I want to ask you about Litecoin and Ethereum. I want to ask you about the biggies that are over on Coinbase. So Coinbase, I think, is still the easiest way to buy these things. But as far as trading goes, without getting too deep into the altcoins, what exchange do you use? I find all of them so damn confusing because everything's always priced in like fractions of a Bitcoin. It's just impossible. It's just for me, it would be a lot easier if these things were priced in dollars. But what exchange do you like to use for this quote-unquote trading you do?
I like to use Bittrex and Binance. I did have a little bit in Cryptopia, which collapsed recently. and I regret not having Pandora's wallet ready for that. That's the reason why I built it. But I didn't lose a whole lot. I only lost like 2% of my total portfolio in Cryptopia, but that's a large number for most people. And I know that it is confusing to trade the cryptos because they're mostly priced in Bitcoin. But for me, the way I look at it, and this is my personal opinion, is that by trading with Bitcoin as my primary currency, I'm treating Bitcoin as my currency, and I know for a fact in the future it's going to go a lot higher. So I'm not only getting, I'm trading for Bitcoins, but I'm trading for an asset that's worth more money in the future, worth more value in the future. And that's why I don't mind getting paid when my trades in Bitcoin, because for me, it's like mining Bitcoins without all the electricity. That's how I see it.
Sure. Okay. And so for those who want to dabble, though, or for those like I who already own a few cryptos, Litecoin, Ethereum, what is your prognostication, your prediction for Litecoin and Ethereum?
Well, for Litecoin, we're going to be having a halvening soon, and I can see that we're probably going to have a run-up in price for Litecoin. But what I suggest you do, and your viewers do it, is on the day of the halvening is you sell, because that will probably be the top, and it'll just roll back down from there. So Litecoin, I think we're going to see a nice pop in Litecoin up in right just before the halvening event. And as for Ethereum is interesting because it's the first contract-based Turing complete cryptocurrency. I wish I did a video stating to people, hey, you know what? The only thing I don't like about Ethereum is that it can be changed in the future. So, for example, if the government wants to take over Ethereum and say, hey, listen, we don't like the fact that XYZ got so much money in Ethereum, and we want to change that, even though he fairly got that money. We were going to change the rules because, you know what, we need that money because he's being unfair. The government can do that based on the technology behind Ethereum. And so that's my only concern with Ethereum. It's a good idea. However, I don't like the implementation. And it's, for me, it works. It's like, for me, honestly, looking at it, it's like the Federal Reserve. Right now, works fine. It's good. But if it changes, it won't be, right? That's the problem. And you can prove that with the fact that what happened with the Dow. The Dow, because somebody hacked the source code of the Dow and stole a whole bunch of money, all they had to do was make a quick change and take the money back from that person. I don't agree with that because, you know, eventually I could, you know what, honestly, I was thinking I could build a complex system on Ethereum that makes a lot of people a lot of money, but is designed to collapse. And then I could get bailed out. And I will get bailed out because I'll screw a lot of people. So that's my concern with Ethereum. But now you asked what I saw the price was going. It's going a lot higher. I wouldn't be surprised if Ethereum passes Bitcoin one day.
Oh, wow. I didn't expect to hear that prediction. Okay, let's turn back to the people's money. Let's turn back, as we wrap this up, to silver. And by way of silver, we have to talk about gold. Gold is also very, very suppressed. But we know that gold breaking free and going to $10,000 or $40,000 or $50,000, as Claudio Grass and some say it should be valued at, perhaps even higher than that based on the outstanding fiat all over the planet. We know that ever seeing a price like $10,000 gold would be a dollar event. That's the only way it's going to happen, is if we see the dollar start to plummet, correct? And if that happens, what do you see for gold? What do you see for silver? I know you mentioned this crazy 1-to-1 silver to gold possibility. We know right now the silver to gold ratio is somewhere at 90-1, which is absolute insanity. It should be 10-1 based on the way they pull the stuff out of the ground. And 10-1 silver at a $10,000 gold price would give us $1,000 silver. But we've been throwing these darts at the board forever, D, and we've been wrong because the manipulators still have all the power. Your prediction for silver and gold?
Well, of course, we have to wait until the collapse of the dollar and the fraud is revealed to the world to see. And I think that's part of the reason why they don't want you to have access to information around the world, is because if the fraud is available, the information about the fraud is available for everyone, then people will move to gold and silver and learn about the truth about gold and silver really fast and be buying it up hand over fist. I still see that happening no matter what they do to control the media. And so I predict gold is 10,000 is just the minimum number. It will probably do well over $20,000 for gold easily. But when will that be? I don't know, honestly, because they have this system on lock. They have control over the media, and people are not listening. People do not understand what's going on, and they're not listening when we do try to tell them what's going on. They don't want to believe. I remember reading articles about how you're crazy if you think silver and gold is manipulated. And I would argue with the author, and they were thinking that I didn't know what I was talking about. I'd point to the COT reports, I'd point out all the information, all the data that I've researched, that even Ted Butler's researched, and they'd be like, "What? You're just crazy." Now I look for those same articles because now that the truth has come out, that all those markets have been manipulated. Notice those articles have all disappeared. Have you noticed that? They've all disappeared. All those articles saying that manipulation doesn't exist have disappeared.
Yeah, the genie's out of the bottle. I mean, we all know what's going on. I guess the problem is our friends, neighbors, and colleagues still don't, right? At the end of the day, you're right. A lot of people still have no idea. They think the dollar's king, and they've got complacency bias. I mean, they've got cognitive dissonance, normalcy bias, and they think this is just going to go on for another 40 years. So they're not buying silver and gold. I guess that's the most astounding part. After all these years and all the information and all the education, all the books that have been written by G. Edward Griffin and others, most folks still have no idea what's coming.
Exactly. And it's kind of sad because, once it happens, right, things like your house, people who think, oh, well, I've got a house, I'm secure, and I could always use that money in the house. The problem is, right, that house and all the rest of the houses were purchased with debt. And that value in that house is only based on the fact that people are easily able to go into debt in order to buy houses. And so what happens when this all turns around and we see real interest rates of like 30, because we have to see those rates, crazy rates of 30% again, because we've gone way too far the other way too long. So we're going to see rates that are out of this world in the future, and your house value is going to be, well, basically a $500 of silver is going to probably buy a Mac mansion.
We don't wish the collapse to come because it's going to be ugly. Just look what's going on in Venezuela, folks. It's absolute hell on earth. We don't wish it, but I don't think it can be stopped. There's just too much debt out there, and the bankers keep printing. The politicians keep printing. Debt goes up and up and up year over year. Soon it'll be $30 trillion in debt. D, I mean, where does it end? Where does it end?
It's incredible, and what blows my mind is that last time I checked, and that was like a year and a half ago, $17 trillion in negative interest rate debt. So that means people are loaning governments money to get back less. How does that work, really? I mean, I asked around in order to figure out what are people thinking. And the best answer I could come up with was that in the country that you're in, your money is losing value faster than the country you're lending it to. So in effect, you're having a positive rate of return based on the negative in the other country's currency.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Wow.
It's sad, but it's hilarious because I've recounted the number of currencies around the planet that have lost 50% or more just in the past year. And there's a bunch of them. Yeah, that's interesting, man. No, it's lunacy. We live in Orwell's world where black is white. It's this lies are truth.
Exactly. It's incredible the way you know what? If you were to go back in time and tell people that go back to the 80s and say, hey, you know what? In the future, we're going to have negative interest rates. They would have laughed you off. Like, that's not possible.
Yeah.
Who in their right mind would give loan people money to get back less in the future? That's just ridiculous. Sorry, I have a cold because I just came back from Davos. It was really cold over there, and I picked up a bug.
No problem. We got to hear your awesome laugh, which I'm a big fan of. So, and I wish you well. I'm so glad that we were able to reconnect after all of this time, and remind people how they can find you now. Tell people about your websites, the new wallet that you have coming out, whatever you want to tell people so that we know how to find you.
Well, I still have my YouTube channel, DavinciJ15. Have about 54,000 subscribers and still growing, it seems. And also, I have this company called Davinci Codes. Is the company that I've built here, and we're producing this wallet called Pandora's Wallet, and it's basically a wallet so that I could take I'm building this wallet mostly for myself, so I could take the money off. Because I have over 200 different cryptocurrencies. I trade them using the little old lady style. And if you're interested in learning Brian's little old lady style of investing, it's really simple. Once you learn how to do it and spend the first 4 hours of time educating yourself on how to do the style of trading, you only have to spend like 20 minutes a day in finding cryptocurrencies and setting the buy and sell orders. It's really simple. And I took a small amount of money and I grew it into millions doing this simple form of trading the altcoins. And if you want to learn how to do that, you can head over to davincicodes.net and then click on videos. And I have a set of free videos on exactly how to do the little lady style of trading. And you could do that. And if you do, you will probably need to use Pandora's wallet because you're going to have so many cryptocurrencies and just it'll be difficult to take them off the exchanges. So using our wallet, you will be able to do so. And of course, you have the keys, not us. So you don't have to worry about us going down, collapsing and not having access to your cryptocurrencies. You could always get the keys and then unlock your cryptocurrencies for yourself.
Awesome. That's very cool. All right, man. Well, I'm glad the spirit moved me to reach out to you when I saw you being interviewed. And I think that this interview was a lot of fun. And I think people hopefully will get a lot out of it. Your offer there at the end, I think, is a generous and gracious one for anybody who wants to dabble in these altcoins. I think this is probably the best way to do it. Because like I said, just taking a flyer on your own and trying to figure it out and do it via Bittrex, it's not easy. Davinci, man, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being on your show.
Yeah, my pleasure. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this one, give it a like, leave us some comments below, and we'd love to hear from you. So thanks so much, guys. We very much appreciate your time. And for real news 24/7, visit us at sgtreport.com. God bless. Bye-bye.
When you use Google, do you get more than one answer? Of course you do.
Yeah, of course.
Well, that's a bug.
Yeah.
We have more bugs per second in the world.
There
Because we should be able to give you the right answer just once.